Boom! Welcome to the Thunder from Down Under podcast. I'm your host, Graham Solomon. And as I always say, guys, if you're not part of the family, go to the Graham Solomon YouTube channel and belt that subscribe button. Hit the bell icon so when we go live with the countdown, with a bit of akadaka, you can come in and watch live. And we're going into a couple of Facebook groups live as well. And then we go in afterwards with the YouTube video. But guys, hit the like button, hit the love button. We've got a special guest in today. He as you can probably tell, he's got the earphones down. He's a fellow podcaster. I actually know him through a network that we're in, and that's just one of his feathers in his caps. He's actually an investor, and he's I've put marketing expert. He'll probably be humble and say, but he's an educator in that space, and he's a very good marketer. I've had a look at a lot of his material, and it's top notch. So without any further ado, I will introduce Rufus Tobito Jr. Tobito, I think I got that right.
Thibodeau, that's pretty close.
Thibodeau,
there it is.
Sorry.
No problem.
I knew I was going to mess it up. Thibodeau.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one.
It's a tough one for us Aussies, and I got the junior right at the end. But Rufus,
that's right. Yeah.
Thank you for coming in, and I'm a fan of your podcast. I've watched many of your podcasts, and welcome to the Thunderdome at the Thunder from Down Under podcast.
Thank you, man. I have watched many of your shows. Love you. I'm glad we finally got a chance to connect up. It's interesting how you cross paths, but you don't actually, end up meeting and talking. And so, I'm glad we connected up. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. And it's amazing. Some of the people that you've interviewed and I've watched with your interviews are actually friends of mine in the industry, but they've got to know you separately. And it's just amazing how small the industry can be. But, I love your style of podcasting. You're really sort of relaxed and you it's a very cool, calm, collected sort of interview. So I really like it. And I've got you on today because we want to talk probably mainly about marketing. That's your big, that's what you do. You educate on that. You've got courses and bits and pieces. But you're in real estate and you're a podcaster. Right. And I just want to, firstly, before we start, I've got a couple of questions about those topics, but just give us a bit of your background, where it all started, like how you got into real estate and the journey that sort of led you to here, where you're doing sort of a three-pronged attack.
Sure. So I started my career back in 1990 as a real estate agent. I would say a broke real estate agent, struggling to try to get leads and customers and sales. And I had, even at that point, it's interesting. When I mentioned 1990, man, I feel like a dinosaur because then we were sort of talking about tech there. But back in 1990, as a real estate agent, the computerized version of the MLS was optional. Everybody else used books. That was kind of what it was. So you flip through the pages. It's kind of crazy. But anyway, so I had really struggled. Had even gotten behind on my mortgage payment. Thought I was going to lose my house. And I discovered a book. Actually, Patrick and I both love this book. It's called Influence by Robert Cialdini. You ever read that book?
Oh, yeah. I haven't read it, but I've heard of it.
But you know what? Yeah. Changed my life. And so basically the book is about why people buy and how to motivate them to buy what you're selling. And so after reading that book actually a few times, I sparked an idea for a crazy letter. And I say crazy because it was a letter unlike any letter that I'd seen before. In fact, all my real estate buddies laughed at me. But I was looking for a way for people to come to me as opposed to me having to chase after people, because that's what we did. Knock on doors, cold call and that kind of thing. And so real estate buddies laughed, but I sent it out anyway. And the letter ended up generating 2,178 leads that year. Wow. Qualified seller leads. Wow. And I made $673,000 that year. Now, that was in 1993. So that's really the equivalent of about $2.6 million in today's money. So it was a lot of money. And, it's interesting because sometimes you have those really good years and you're like, man, I didn't know I made that much money, because you don't really feel it. But this money, I felt that. So that changed my life. And so that was really the launch of a very successful career in real estate as an agent, then as a broker, then as a real estate investor. And so it also sparked an interest in, copywriting. I didn't know that was what it was called then, but just writing ads and psychology and human behavior and all that stuff. And so I spent a tremendous amount of time studying that and got very, very good at it. And eventually other people started to hear about, the success that I was having, so they started hiring me to write ads and do, marketing strategy for them. And fast forward over the last 30 years now, that generated probably close to $350 million in sales for myself and for my clients.
Yeah.
But right now, today, I'm focused 100% on working with real estate investors. And the reason is because if you Google the term real estate investor failure rate, you'll see that 95% of real estate investors fail. Now, a lot of times people think that I'm just making up that number, but if you Google, you'll see it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and it's crazy. And the primary reason why they're failing is because they're wasting their time on marketing that either doesn't work at all or that doesn't work as well as it could and should work. And so that's what I'm doing. So that's the reason why I started a Facebook group. I created some courses. I do the podcast. All of that is designed to really help real estate investors to generate leads faster and easier, without having to knock on doors, cold call, and waste money on ads that don't work. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of the story, and that's where I'm at today.
Yeah. And how many years? So how many years from when you started as a real estate agent to now? How many years?
Yeah, it's been over 30 years. So from
Wow.
1990 to 2023, so 33 years.
So
Yeah,
there's a lot of experience in those 30 years. There would have been some
yeah.
big ups like that and some big downs. And
Oh man, you
yeah,
know what? Way more downs than ups.
yeah,
But you know what? It's interesting. You learn more from the failures than the successes.
yeah.
Doesn't feel good, but
No,
but you learn from those. So yeah, man. I say that the most valuable thing what makes me most valuable is the mistakes that
yeah.
I've made and overcome. So yeah, a lot of mistakes, but a lot of time. Sure.
Well, not only does it, you learn how to do it the right way, and you gain experience from that, and it
Right.
thickens your skin. You become tougher, but it
Yeah.
also enables you to go back, like in your case, when you're educating people, and
Yeah.
you know what they're going through. You've been through what they've been through, and that's just
Right.
something where you can connect with people. And I guess with your copywriting, you
Yeah.
you can go back into those times and go, I'm going to say this because that's what I needed to see when I was going through that. So you
Well,
can use
sure.
that,
You
you
can
know.
use it, and you know what though? Yeah, it's really just a. I lost. I was going to say your name, but I just spaced out on it, Graham.
Yeah,
It's very very formulaic. So in other words, people, the way, as an example, people have these psychological shortcuts that they
yep,
use to make buying decisions. And so, as an example, there's one shortcut called expensive equals good. So, in other words, I've got two different suits that I want to buy, and I don't know a lot about suits. I'm not a tailor, but one suit is $90, and the other suit is $5,000. So, just from the price alone, you think, hey, well, this one's probably better. Same thing with services, like an attorney. You're getting sued. You got three choices. You got the guy that charges $99, all the law you can handle,
yeah,
$100 an hour, and then you got the $2,000 guy. Well, you know what I mean. So if you use those principles, you multiply your chances of getting people to respond, because
yeah,
you can't change what somebody wants. All you can do is find out what they want and show them how what you offer can get them what they want.
yeah,
So it's really not magical. It's just that most people, uh, if you take the time to study why people buy, you're going to just increase your likelihood of being able to get people to respond on your marketing, as opposed to trying to force them to buy by knocking on the door and
yeah, yeah.
talking, cold calling them, interrupting their dinner, and you know what I mean. So anyway,
And that's a question I've got for you,
yeah,
Rufus. Is how much does it change from the early days? Like you say, the word sales means you're pushing and you're trying to
yeah,
sell them something. And what you're talking
yeah,
about now is a whole new thing where people are
yeah,
coming to you buying. You're not going
yeah.
to them selling; they're coming to you and
It's
buying.
different. Yeah. Well, you know what? I learned that. I mean, that's obviously something that I mean, I didn't create that. And so, and I was selling back in the old days. I was, and actually selling, a great salesperson really is still doing the same thing. They understand how people buy, and
Yeah,
they're just guiding them
yep,
with the
yep,
questions that they ask, as opposed to, hey, forcing them to try to forcing something down their throat and
yeah,
using high pressure selling. So yeah, I use a lot of high pressure selling. That's sort of old school. But
Yep.
the new school is, and I tell you something else. As I started getting really interested and passionate about selling, I would love to go to the state fair, um, and listen to those old time salespeople sell the slicers and dicers.
Yep. Yep.
And something else that I loved was infomercials. I mean, you're watching, you're flipping through the channels. All
Yeah.
of a sudden, you stop on some, detergent commercial. Next thing you know, you're whipping out your credit card and making an order. And so
Yeah.
I wanted to understand, why does that work? How does that work? And so it's not something that happens by accident. If you understand that, as an example, if I try to put someone's hand over a hot fire, they're going to pull it away. So I'm not
Yeah.
going to do that. That's so cold calling and high pressure selling is trying to force them
Yeah.
over the heat, and sometimes it'll work, but then they end up getting buyer's remorse. But if you understand, hey, this is people move toward pleasure and away from pain. So
Yeah.
if you can give them something that makes them feel more pleasurable, you're going to increase the chances of them coming to you as opposed to you chasing them. Just like fishing, good bait.
Yeah.
Use the right kind of bait. There's a lot of different analogies and a lot of different examples. But the point is, back then, yeah, the old school is force feeding people. The new school is understanding how people buy and
Yep.
attracting them to come to
Yeah.
you. So attraction marketing, I would call it.
Yeah, so you've talked about the outbound sort of cold calling, text blasting, all those
Yeah,
things where people get really agitated and saturated over a period of time.
yeah,
So you're a big believer in attracting inbound stuff. You believe
right.
inbound stuff gives you an advantage at the start.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, so what it does is it positions you more as, so if you are cold, and by the way, cold calling and door knocking does work.
Yeah,
The problem is that it's very, very painful emotionally,
yep,
even financially, and it positions you as a salesperson, as a money hungry salesperson,
yep,
as an annoying pest. Versus if you have people come to you, then you're positioning yourself as an expert advisor, sort of like a doctor
yep,
or an attorney. And so when that happens, it's much easier to close a sale because those people are coming to you. There's not as many objections to overcome. So it's a way more profitable way of doing business. And so,
yeah,
and again, but the cold calling works. In fact, the best scenario is if you are attracting people, but you need sales skills because you
yeah,
need to be able to
yeah,
explain to them what you offer. You need to be able to ask the right questions, and so but it's much more about attracting. Well, it's I would say it's just more profitable to
yeah,
attract versus having to chase people.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Because I notice a lot of people that do the pay per click, and the inbound Facebook marketing that
yeah, yeah,
they love it. They go, oh, I just couldn't cold call anymore. I just couldn't do it. I had to find something else. And then
yeah,
once they get set up, they just love it, and they just say it's a flow of, and it gives you a different position. Exactly what you said. It gives you a
yeah.
higher ground to stand on, I guess.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah, yeah. And you want to be able to, but by doing that, if you notice, people never negotiate with an attorney. People
yeah,
never negotiate the fees that a doctor charges. You don't
yeah,
negotiate your fees with the financial planner because in your mind they're the expert.
yeah, yeah,
And here's another one of those emotional, those psychological shortcuts people use is if an expert says it, then it's true.
yeah,
So in other words, if the quickest way to become an expert is to stand up in front of a room, scribble something out on a whiteboard, start talking to people. Now you're an expert. Or write a book. And when I say write a book, that doesn't mean you got to write a 300-page book that's on Amazon.com. You can
yeah,
write an ebook or a checklist. But the point is positioning yourself as an expert. It just you can charge higher fees. You
yeah,
can and it's just easier to get people to know, like, and trust you that way.
yeah.
Yeah,
So a young person in the industry's fresh
yeah,
face. They got all this energy and they're ready to go, and they come to you and say, "What do I do?" Because obviously, marketing, you've got to get leads coming in, so that's a very
right,
important thing. Straight up,
sure.
what would your advice be? Like you said, shortcuts, top 5 shortcut
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
sayings and stuff. What would your advice be to them?
I would say that what you want to do first is you want to research your market. Okay, you want to understand your market because a lot of times people think that, oh, this guy's a copywriter, he can come up with a good ad. Hey, Rufus, come up with an ad, and it's really not about the ad; it's about the people. And so
Yeah.
Once you understand what their pain points are, it's much easier for you to be able to offer a solution. So that would be the first step, is do some research to understand who your market is and what are the
Yeah.
problems that they're experiencing, so that you can offer a solution. And then what you want to do is create a solution that is sort of like bait. Think of yourself as a fisher, like you're a fisher. I was going to say fisherman, but I don't want to be politically incorrect. There, fisher woman,
Yeah.
fisher
Fisher
person. Yeah,
person.
there you go. So
That's right.
so that solution is the bait. So in other words, so if you are, let's say, a landlord, if you want to go after landlords, you know what their pain point is. Maybe their pain point is they don't want to have to deal with evictions. So now you create and what I would recommend is some type of a lead magnet, like a free report or checklist or a video, a MIDI training. It could be any information that is valuable and that explains the solution that you offer to those people. So now you've got this bait, you put it in front of those people, and now you have some type of a landing page. It doesn't have to be expensive. You can find somebody on
Yeah.
Fiverr for $20 to create a landing page.
Yeah.
So create a landing page, and then that really becomes your system. And probably I would say a few follow-up emails, maybe 5 to 7. So you put those things together, and that becomes a lead generation system. So the way that it works is now you've got that lead magnet that you maybe are putting into an ad. It doesn't have to be an ad. It could be a flyer. You could post it up. You could put it on a sign. Whatever the message is that's telling people that you offer this solution. And then you want to. And the other thing about that ad, I would say, is it calls out to that person. So in other words, attention, whoever it is you're going after, attention
Yeah.
real estate or attention tired landlords. Free report reveals 5 things, 5 secrets to selling your rental property, with no money, and whatever
Yeah.
the solution
Yeah.
is, and drive them to some type of a landing page, offer your free report or checklist, and then follow up with them with those emails. And then that,
Yep.
you're not gonna attract everybody, but you're gonna be attractive to the person that is having that problem. Because if they're not having a problem where they're concerned about, if we're offering, going after landlords that are having, don't want to evict the tenant, then we're offering a solution to that. And if that solution is not appealing to them, they're not going to respond. But if it is, now you've got a person that's already pre-qualified for what you're looking for. And so you're going to
Yeah.
go along. It's going to be a lot easier to convert that person into a lead because they're already interested. So now instead of chasing after them, you put your line in the water and you're fishing and using that bait to attract them to you. So it's pretty simple to do.
Yeah. And you if you're doing a top 5, you'd find the biggest headaches, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You'd,
100%.
that a tired landlord faces, and
Yeah.
you just sit down and think about that, and so they pick it up and this is my answer.
Yeah, he's like, this person's reading my mind, because
Yeah.
but that's why
Yeah.
I would say the success of an ad or marketing campaign is about 80% research.
Yeah.
And then it just becomes, in fact, when I'm working with clients, the majority of what I'm doing is interviewing them to find out what their pain points are. And that becomes the headline or the ad itself or the copy. So I'm not just creating it, I'm identifying or discovering it. And that's the same thing you would do with I would recommend anybody do as the first step. That's the most important, the research.
Yeah. We've got someone saying, "What's up?" I'm just trying to. I can't see who that is, so put your name in the chat. I'm not sure it's one of Rufus's fans because we've got a couple of mutual friends, so I thought maybe someone's clicked in. But yeah, just chuck who it is, and we'll do a shout out. Anyone else that comes in, do a shout out where you're coming in from. No, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. Is don't just go all guns blazing. Do your research.
Yeah.
Find out the facts.
Yeah.
And then put those facts into, and then like you said, landing page. Like it doesn't have to be expensive.
No.
You just have a lead magnet, a landing page.
Yeah.
And then you've got an email trail, and you can get on the phone and introduce yourself.
100%. And yeah, the phone could work perfectly in that. And I'll tell you something else. Here's the 3 things that are most important here. And I learned this from one of my mentors. His name is Dan Kennedy. One is it's the message, the market, and the media. So in other words, the message is what I was just explaining. After you do your research, you create a message that connects with that audience, and then the market and the message obviously you have to match. But then also the media is the way to deliver that message. So we talked about you know, you mentioned PPC and other types of marketing media, you would determine what marketing you're going to use, whether you're going to do a mailing or a Facebook ad or whatever, based
Yep.
upon that market. So if your target market is not on Facebook, then you don't want to do a Facebook ad. If they,
Yeah.
if it's going to be easier for them to, for you to do, do some yard signs or bandit signs, and then you do that.
Yeah.
So, but the point is, the market, the message, and the media all have to match. And if you're not getting good results, it's usually because one of those three is out of alignment. But if you have all three
Yeah.
alignment, you're going to improve your chances of being able to succeed with that.
Yeah. And then that's where you got to sort of do your stats in it, so you can find out what's not working out of those three factors and adjust it.
Yeah, and that's what I'm a big proponent of. It's called direct response marketing. So in other words, you're able to, like you said, measure and track and figure out what's working, what's not working, versus just putting something out there and put kind of get your name out there, as they would say, branding. I mean, branding is important, but what you want to do is do something that's measurable, trackable, so you know that it works, and whatever doesn't work, you can tweak it until it does work. Yeah.
So just to summarize, what would be the top 5 things that you think works the best in marketing? Just from 1 to 5 down to 1.
Yeah.
What do you reckon are the most effective things in marketing from what you've just spoken about?
Yeah. I would say that it's really not so much. So I would say research. So it's not really the like you might be thinking, hey, is it a direct mailer? Is it an ad? And it's not so much those things as much as it is the 3 things that I just mentioned. So in other words, it's really figuring out who your market is, and then research that market to find their pain points, and then create a solution that tells them how you're going to help them to solve that problem. And then deliver it to them in the way that makes sense to them. In other words, if they're not on Facebook, don't use Facebook. And so use the market or the media that works for them, and then make sure that it's trackable. How much, what tool do I use? Again, is it a bandit sign? Is it a Facebook ad? Well, that's going to be determined by the 5 things that I just mentioned: who the market is, and then because those 5 things could be used in anything. Facebook, it could be used on Instagram, it could be used in the mail, it could be used on the phone. So a lot of different things. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I want to make sure I'm answering.
Yeah, no, that's right. I just wanted to sort of condense them because I want to make a little short on that, because people get this so wrong. People get it so wrong, and they spend thousands and thousands of dollars and get no results, and then go, and then I'll try something else. And that's what I was going to ask you next. When you've been in the business a long time, Rufus, did you do a trial and error and learn from mistakes?
Oh,
Did you make all those mistakes?
100%.
And like obviously now, like 3 decades have been in it.
Yeah.
You've got a blueprint and everything. So, like, for instance, I've just said to you, like, if a young person wanted to, so, they can obviously jump in your Facebook group and learn a bit off you, and then reach out to you for that. But what was probably the biggest mistake you made? Like, what was the big one where you just went, Rufus, you didn't want to come out of the house for a month. You just went, what have I done?
Yeah, I think that I've made a ton, but the one that comes right to mind is just copying what I see other people doing and thinking that it works just because they're out there doing that. And so spending my money, a ton of money on some, colored, mailers, mailing out, 5,000 of them, whatever, and getting nothing because I didn't research who I was sending it to. And here's something. I mentioned those other 5 things, Graham, but here's something that maybe is at least as important is your unique selling proposition. In other words, figuring out what makes you different. So here's the question that you want to be able to answer. Why should I choose you? Why should I do business with you versus all of the other real estate wholesalers and fix and flippers in the market? And you need to be able to answer that question. But a lot of that is going to come from doing the research and from your own personal story. So trying to figure out what makes you unique. But again, so I didn't have anything that was unique about me. I saw somebody do something, I call it Me Too marketing. So, I saw them doing it, figured that they were doing it because it worked, and I tried it and lost a bunch of money. So that was, a ton of money. Yeah. And I've done that kind of thing a lot, that's what forced me to learn, how do I make this work? What makes it, again, here's something else that I would recommend to people. Keep track of what makes you want to buy something. If you're reading an ad
Yeah,
or you get something in the mail, it makes you want to buy it, even if whether you buy it or not. If it makes you want to, that means that's good copy, and so you want to hang on to that and emulate that. Figure a way to emulate. A lot of what I teach is learn from successful marketing and ads that are already out there and just tweak it, and I call it copy cloning. Make it, apply it to your specific business, and so you're not
yeah,
having to reinvent the wheel. If it's working already, use that as a template to create your own.
yeah. And the more you unfold this for us, the more everything works into everything. Every point works into the eight. Like you said, you've got your lead magnet,
Yeah,
and then in your lead magnet, you've got all the problems and your conditions. Oh yeah, that's
yeah,
me.
yeah,
And then they reach out to you, and the email thing is you solving the problem and building credibility. And then
yeah.
the phone call comes, and you're professional and you follow up, and it's just a process, isn't it?
Yeah, this is.
Of
Yeah, it's very formulaic. It's
just
just
opening up the I guess the old word is the prospect, the seller's mind. So
sure.
you're the person. I
Yeah.
didn't like that other person. I didn't like that person, but I like
Well,
Rufus.
yeah,
You
and
know?
and it doesn't have to be expensive either, Graham. As an example, you can just create a flyer. Let's just say, as an example, you say, here's something that's a pretty good template. 5 mistakes. So and your checklist is maybe the 5 most expensive mistakes that whoever the target is makes, and how to avoid them. That's a pretty
Yep.
standard headline that's worked for years. And so now all of a sudden,
Yeah.
you do the research, you find those 5 mistakes, and people that are concerned about those mistakes are going to call you. So the
Yep.
5 mistakes that for sale by owners make when trying to sell their homes, or the 5 mistakes that landlords make when they are renting a property, whatever it is. Again, use that template after you do the research and plug it in there.
Yep.
But then, as you mentioned, now you've got that. It could just be a flyer. You can post it up. You can put it on a sign. You can do a cheap mailer. But then people are coming to some kind of a landing page. They're downloading your report. Now you capture the lead, and now you've
Yep.
got it. That's way better to have 100 people, 100 landlords, 100 property owners that have some type of a problem, because only what 3 to 5% are going to be ready to go right today. But now you've
Yeah.
got 95 or 5% of them that'll be ready to go over time. So now they're in
Yeah.
your network. You're sending them information that's continuing to build the know, like, and trust factor. And now all of a
Yeah.
sudden you're attracting people as opposed to chasing them. And so it's really
Yeah.
simple. Yeah.
And a lot of quite successful investors I've spoken to that have been up and running for a long time, they say that there's a bit of a fallacy. You're just going to close. You're in person. You're going to close
Yeah.
first call. Yeah, of course that happens if you're a great closer and that, but
Yeah.
most of the deals are 6 to 12 months of
Right.
nurturing and even longer. And it's building. It's like building up a trade business.
That's right.
You have friends of the person that you did something for 5 years ago,
Sure.
because this big thing grows, this big snowball rolling down a hill grows. So all that's important. Like and just from those steps you've said, you actually can build that and continue building that
Yeah.
over a period of time,
Yeah.
which saves you money going out pulling lists and blasting and doing all that. Which once again, you've got to do a little bit of keep momentum going, but what you're saying is you're building a lifetime network of
Well,
people.
sure. And what's happening is that now you've got 5 people, 10 people, 20, 30 people in there. It will take years to come up to thousands, but you don't need thousands. So if you got 50,
Yeah,
60 sellers that are already have identified themselves as having some type of a problem and looking
yeah,
for a solution, and you now are explaining to them why you are the best solution. You're giving them information that's explaining what
yeah,
makes you different and how you can help them. And now their no like and trust is going right through the roof, and they like you now. And so now you're
yep,
sort of a big fish in a little pond versus
yeah,
so the whole idea with the marketing really is use some bait out into the world to
yep,
attract the people that have are experiencing the pain that you have a solution for, and then you continue to build rapport with those people to explain to them why you're the right choice for them. And again, like you said, 5%, 3% will be ready to go today, but most of the real estate investors miss out on the bulk of those because they're just looking for the sale today versus
yeah,
something,
yeah,
building a continual flow of, because when you do emails and there's lots of different ways to do it. You got, tips and all kinds of stuff. But people start to reply to those emails like, hey, you know what? Actually, I have a question about this. I have a question about that. And now you have earned their right to talk to them, and they're trusting you, and that's the best way to close a deal.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I reckon the really effective ones that have caught me are the ones that at the bottom says, "Hey, reply and tell me what you think about that topic."
Exactly.
And you feel compelled to.
Sure.
Oh, they're actually asking me for my opinion. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And you get it makes you actually, or hit the reply and you reply and then you just go, oh yeah, they really want to listen to me.
Sure.
But how true that is, I don't know. But it's actually happened.
Oh yeah, so, it does happen. Sure.
Yeah. So no, that's amazing. And I want to just shift gears a little bit and go across to your podcasting world because relationship marketing, podcasting, social media. How big a role does that play? Do you believe in not just your marketing, but your real estate business?
Like, it's huge.
How important is that? Like, because obviously you do a podcast.
Yeah.
What effect have you seen from that spreading your brand, I guess, your marketing, real estate brand?
It's really important because again, what you're doing, the whole idea, the whole strategy is again, positioning yourself as an expert. Because remember, if an expert says it, then it's true. So in other words, if you see a woman or a guy with a white lab coat, stethoscope around their neck, and they're giving you health advice, you're going to listen to them. So the easiest way so what you want to do is you want to position yourself as an expert. And I'd recommend any real estate investor. That's a great strategy to start a podcast for property owners. And you're just, you're just answering questions. But anyway, the reason why I did it is because I wanted to, all these books keep coming to my mind. There's a great book called Trust-Based Marketing by Dan Kennedy. And anyway, so the idea is that you get people to trust you by getting in front of the camera like that. So my objective was, because I knew that real estate investors had such a high failure rate, I want to talk to really successful investors and interview them, find out what they're doing to be successful in an industry with such a high failure rate, and pass that information along to the rest of the real estate community. And so what ends up happening is that I position myself as an expert because I wouldn't be interviewing people if I wasn't an expert. And actually, I call it the Steve Harvey effect, because Steve Harvey became a billionaire, whatever he is, by just interviewing and introducing people. So it's like so I said, hey, I'm going to interview people, so that helps me learn. It helps me position myself as an expert by interviewing people, but also I'm offering information that's of value to my target audience. And so, so social media, that's a big part of it. This has helped my own real estate business because, again, and we sort of talked about this earlier, and we'll probably get to this, my real estate business versus the marketing side. But it's helped a lot because, again, I am giving information and I'm building trust. I'm building trust with my guests, and I'm also building trust with my audience, who actually both my guest and my audience are both my target audience. They're the people that I'm trying to sell marketing services to. So sort of a double-edged sword. But it works great. And I would recommend that as real estate agents or investors rather. Most of them would never think of, okay, so I need to get real estate. I need more leads. Okay, I'm going to go knock on some doors. I'm going to go cold call. Well, why not start a podcast? Well, how do I do that? I'm not tech. Well, all you have to do is figure out who are other experts that a property owner would be interested in learning from. It could be home repair. It could be lawn care. It could be electricians. It could be builders. Anywhere, and you interview them to get some tips that you could pass on to your audience. And so all of a sudden now, you're an expert, and you're getting people to call on your show or reach out to you for asking for advice, and boom, you get a deal that way. Versus why the other people are cold calling, and it's a mind shift. I mean, it's a completely different mindset. But
it is,
But anyway, I'm rambling now. But that's a great strategy.
No, I agree. All them points, I agree totally. And some people just go, I couldn't do it. I couldn't get. Like we're live now. Like I do mine live. At Archives. And that covers a lot of my tech issues. Just go straight to YouTube.
right.
I pop it in group, go straight to group. So that's my thing.
Yeah.
A lot of people just and I say to them, just record it. Just ring up Rufus.
Yes.
Have a casual Saturday when Rufus is sitting back.
Yeah.
Get him on, record it, and then edit it. And
there you go.
if you stutter or whatever, that's one way. Another way is just do YouTube videos.
Exactly.
Just do educational YouTube videos. You don't have to be that have money. You can just do it off your phone.
Yeah.
There's so many ways. Have a Facebook group and go live in your Facebook group. Go live off your page.
Yeah. So many different ways. And the thing is, you just have to start. And you know what? I'm not a movie star. And if you saw my wife, you'd be like, man, how did you get her? But I figured, you know what? I just made up my mind that if I met somebody in person, this is what you're going to see. So why not get on a video? And like you said, just do it with your phone. And I think it seems to me one of the easiest sort of strategies is just to interview people and just come up with, 5-10 questions that you're going to ask. And again, if you're interviewing people that are of interest and of value to your market, then that you're going to position yourself as an expert, and people are going to want to watch it because they're going to learn from it. And that's another principle. Most people understand that principle of reciprocity. I mean, give something for free. People feel obligated to give something back to you, and it works. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Oh, I first started listening to podcasts a lot when I first found out about the US market.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to people and I'm going, there's one person watching and they're throwing out gold nuggets left, right. So I'm thinking, this is better than buying a course. I mean, all I've got to do is just write these things down. Some really like top level stuff that you pay good money for. And there's a couple of guys in particular. I've got an Aussie mate and we used to go, he used to listen to it on the way to work. And I go, man, he threw out about 20 gold nuggets today. Did you hear them? He goes, yeah.
Right.
And that might be Warren C now. We've got a few people in the chat.
Nice.
That's Warren C. Hell yes, that's either him or Marty from New Zealand. We've got a bit of a Southern Hemisphere connection going. But see, we'll throw it, if we call them thunderbolts on this show, so we'll throw a few thunderbolts out. But those things that you've said, and also, and I didn't realize this when I started it, was I talked to Rufus, and then I talked to him after. I interviewed him to get some information out to people in my Facebook group and YouTube and that.
Yeah.
But then I spoke for half an hour afterwards, and Rufus tells me 10 thunderbolts, and then all of a sudden I get Rufus's Facebook group, and I join it, and all of a sudden I learn marketing off someone that I've got a connection with.
That's right.
And I didn't realize that. Someone pointed that to me out. I wasn't doing that at the start. I'm just great to get people on. And so your network grows for your own real estate business, as well as you getting, like you said, experts, and you're getting their information out to the masses so that they can learn quicker. So there's a lot of benefits of it. And once again, you don't have to do a podcast. You can do your own version.
You can do anything. But I think the key, and I can't stress this enough, is to research your audience to find out what their pain points are. And the other thing, so research and then create your unique selling proposition. What makes you unique? And so if you do those two things, you'll be successful. Because here's the thing: have you ever heard of Brian Tracy, Graham?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So he's getting kind of older now, but back in the day, back in the 90s, he was really, really big. And he said this: that if you want to become an expert, first of all, you should read for 1 hour a day. If you do that, that's one book a week, so 50 books a year. And the average person reads one book a year. Okay. And if you keep doing that for 3 years on one subject, you'll become an expert on that. And it's easy to figure out because, again, if one average person is reading one book a year. And so if real estate investors, because here's the thing, real estate investors think they're in the real estate investing business. They're not. They're actually in the marketing of real estate investing. Yeah. And so marketing, learning about marketing and learning about people and why people buy is the smartest, that's the best investment, because again, people are knocking and cold calling, trying to force people to do something when all you have to do is find out, what they want and how they buy, and you could give it to them the way they want, and bam, now you got them coming to you, which is way better for a lot of reasons that we talked about. So
it's funny when you really break it down. There's so many aspects of it in there. Of putting to like a wholesale deal or a creative finance deal or a fix and flip over 5 months. There's a lot to it, but one of the most important things is you've got to get the deal.
You got to get the deal.
there's you can plan everything, but if you haven't got the deal,
Yeah,
you got
yeah,
the oxygen. So, look, I just wanted on that note, I've got a couple of questions on
Yeah.
education. Now, you mentioned Dan Kennedy as well.
Yeah.
A few people I know that have done really well in the business, and another guy like who I found out about the business, Dean Graziosi,
Oh,
who's
yeah.
moved on with Tony Robbins
Yeah.
to bigger things now.
Sure.
Dan, they always mention Dan Kennedy, so you've actually studied a little bit of Dan Kennedy.
I have devoured his stuff. Yeah, but go ahead. I mean, what's the question? Sure. Yep.
Well, the question was: is he one? I was just going to go into education and mentors.
Yeah.
I was going to ask: is he one of you? Has he had a big impact on you, Dan Kennedy?
100%. Yeah, 100%. Because he's the first person that I really understood. He calls it magnetic marketing, and so the idea of attracting instead of chasing after people. And it was a total it was a total total opposite of anything that I had ever learned. And it made sense because again, if somebody's trying to force you to put your hand over the fire, you're not going to do that. I mean, so there's things that people naturally do. There's ways that they naturally buy things, a process that they normally go through, and once you understand that, then you could give them what they want. And so man, he's probably my biggest mentor. Yeah.
Who else what other books and mentors have you had that have really made an impact? Probably top 3 or 4.
Okay,
maybe.
I would say John Carlton. He's another really great copywriter. I would also say Gary Halbert. Gary Halbert, yeah. And there's who is I thought there was an Australian guy. Well, I tell you what, there's a guy. His name was Trevor Crook, and he was from Australia. And he's probably I learned so much from that guy. He's a copywriter, and but anyway, I can go on and on and on. I would say the top guy is probably Dan Kennedy, John Carlton, and Gary Halbert. And as far as books and resources, I would say the course Magnetic Marketing. I would say and pretty much any book. Dan Kennedy has a series called the No BS series. And so No BS Trust Marketing, and he has just a bunch. You could Google them. And as far as education, again, this is going to sound weird, but there's a website called swiped.co. And what it does is it's basically a swipe file. A swipe file is just a collection of proven ads and letters. And it's like an online version of that. And so what I recommend is going on that site, looking at some ads by Gary Halbert. There's tons of them, but I would grab those and write those letters out by hand. Now that sounds really weird, and it's a little bit brutal. But what happens is there's a scientifically proven connection between the brain and writing. And so and what will happen is their writing style, their strategy, their thought process, you'll start to absorb that, and you'll become a better writer just by doing that. Yeah. And you'll understand a lot more, because a great copywriter is not just a person that writes words, but understands marketing strategy as well. So in other words, this is the ad that we're going to write. Here's why, and here's the strategy, just like I broke down that 5-step lead generation system. So you have to put all those things together. But anyway, so those are the things that have taught me the most. Dan Kennedy, I would say probably the most, because it's practical.
The Thunderdome's on fire. You're dropping thunderbolts everywhere. I'm going to go back and write all that down.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyone that's watching, whether you're new or you've been in it a while, there's some real tips there. So go back, watch it, and write those down, because once again, you get a couple of good books and they can really fast track you.
Yeah.
They can change your life. I mean, just even that swipe copy, that's, you're right. It's almost like you're writing affirmations. They become part of your brain the way you think. So,
and you don't until you, and it sounds weird, but if you do it, when you do it, you'll see it working. Because what happens is you're writing, because even there's stuff that you miss by reading versus writing. So when you start writing out those words, some of those ads are super long, but just maybe taken in pieces. And if I would start with just writing out the headlines, because what you can do is a headline that has already worked will work again. You just have to change the subject matter. So if it says, are you making these mistakes in English? Well, you could
Yeah.
just say, are you making these mistakes when trying to sell your property? Or,
Yeah.
because the same concept will work in other industries. In fact, here's another thunderbolt. Um, Find ideas that have worked in other industries and apply them to real estate.
Yeah. Yep.
Because what's going to happen is you're not going to have any competition, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just figure out what has already worked and just do that. That's probably the smartest advice that I learned. And I learned that from Gary Helbert.
Yep. Yep.
So anyway, yeah, I can go on and on and on, but yeah, those are the.
Well, that's good. I'll just quickly ask you, other than your podcast and the Thunder from Down Under podcast, what are your favorite podcasts out there? Real estate, marketing,
Yeah,
just across the board.
sure. One of my favorite podcasts is something called "How I Built This."
Yeah, I've seen that.
Have you seen that?
Seen that?
Yeah.
Yep.
And any podcasts really that are just about how people started businesses.
Yeah.
And I love understanding what they did, and just getting ideas from them. Because again, if something worked in one industry, it'll work in another industry. You just have to apply. And most people don't know that, so they don't try to apply. That doesn't. Nobody's ever used that in my industry. Well, that's great.
Yeah.
So now you can be the first. You know what I mean?
It's something new.
Yeah.
You're an innovator, not an imitator.
Exactly. There you go.
From over there, but you're an innovator.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing I was going to ask you too is, well, firstly, I think we're running out. I can't believe it. This happened last week. We're about 46 minutes in. I feel like I've been on for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I do too.
I'm going to have to catch up with you outside of this. I love this stuff.
Yeah.
You've got some courses and you've got a Facebook group, and
Yeah.
I've just put on the screen. People can check it out. I can screenshot it while they're watching the replay. But
Yeah.
there's the Facebook group there. Now, I'll have to fess up. It's like I'm a confession. I've actually downloaded a bit of Rufus' stuff, and I'm like, oh wow, how did all have me? I felt like a genius. I like all those how to, and then there was a gap, guys, jump in. Rufus will give you some free stuff to get you started. All the rest of it, like he said, he's got some further education as you get up and started. But this is really, I don't think people understand how this. Closing is very important, but attracting the leads and the right leads is very important. So this is right up your front end. And if you're more of an acquisitions person, you might even get people to disposition your deals. This is what you've got to do. So join Rufus's Facebook group. It's there, and he's got his just his Facebook profile, which you can reach out if you want to connect with him.
Yes.
Send him a friend request with a message just saying, "Hey, Rufus, saw you on the Thunder Down Under. I want to jump in and learn some of this stuff."
Yeah.
And 30 years experience, you can't beat that. I mean, the School of Hard Knocks.
Oh yeah.
Probably the first decade.
Yeah.
And like you said, you've had some big highs, but you've probably had a few lows. So, guys, check Rufus out. He's we know some mutual people. He's well connected in the industry, and what he doesn't know, he'll find out for you.
Sure.
So. We'll probably leave it there. I had 100 other questions. I wanted to get a bit more personal. So, what does Rufus do for his spare time besides reading real estate?
I'll tell you what I do. I love to juggle, and I love to do magic tricks.
Wow.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
That's awesome.
We'll have to get into that the next time. Yes, I love that.
When I come out to the States on the Magical Mystery Tour, the Thunder from Down Under tour,
yes.
I'm hiring you as the entertainment.
Let's
You're going to be there
juggling
and juggling plates and
let's do it.
Throwing knives at me and
let's do sawing you in half. Let's do it.
Sawing me in half and yeah. So that sounds good. And we've got one of your buddies on next week. We've got the Jamal, the gorilla CEO, coming in next week.
Guy.
I saw you on your podcast.
Yes.
So like I say, guys, reach out. Rufus is very well connected in the industry, and he's got some. I see a lot of stuff, but I noticed that he's really on top of copy and all that sort of stuff, and that whole attracting people to you. And to me, that's the way of the future. Things are tightened up a bit now. You need to get people coming to you.
Right.
People are just worn out with the whole saturation of you reaching out to them. So, look, thanks for coming in, Rufus. I would like to spend a bit more time, a few more questions, but I think that's great. I think, like I said, the studio's on fire. There's thunderbolts hit everywhere. I think you've given us enough. Reach out to Rufus. We're going to jump off now. Thanks for coming in, Rufus, and have a great weekend.
Yes.
And to all the viewers, thanks. Check this out. go back, watch, and look for those thunderbolts and introduce it in your business. This is very important. And I know when I started, I didn't take this seriously, and I blew so much money that I could have avoided. So this is where you start. And Rufus is jumping his group, and this is pit stop number 1. Learn off Rufus, and then you're ready to get going. But thanks, Rufus. Appreciate it. Great. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Talk soon.
Thanks to Rufus. You've been thunderstruck.